rice harvesting work was held on October 5th at Rice Paddy Art in Takakura, Kakuta City, Miyagi Prefecture, which is famous for its designs, based on the designs of Sendai-born professional figure skater Yuzuru Hanyu. There are also plans to brew craft beer using harvested ancient rice. About 25 local residents took part in the event. 9 types of ancient rice were carefully cut out from the drawings, depicting the silhouettes of Mr. Hanyu performing Natsulata and equestrian statue of Date Masamune, in the ruins of Sendai Castle, Aoba District, Sendai City. The ancient rice will be used as raw material for wreaths presented to visitors, and for craft beer brewed at Senin Shinkin Factory, the city's local beer garden. The number of visitors this year was a record of about 32,000, some from overseas, such as South Korea, Italy and Indonesia. Masatomo Sato, 74, president of the Nishin Rice Field Art Association, founded by local residents, said, "I am proud that so many people from abroad have visited the Takakura area in this vast world. Rice Paddy Art is looking at Hanyu's designs again next year." Takeshi Hara is a fashion designer, but did not study design. He was a guitarist for many years, starting as a teenager, and actively recorded and toured. At the same time, he began working as a costume consultant and designer, and created costumes for many skaters, and also had a hand in the costumes in Yuzuru's show Natsulata. First of all, how did you feel when you heard about Hanyu-san turning pro? When I heard that there would be a press conference, I had 2 different thoughts. He will probably continue next season. Perhaps he will retire. And when I watched the press conference, I was surprised. Now. And at the same time I thought, this is how it is. This year I accompanied him to Fantasy on Ice, and now I have found confirmation of some of my feelings. I thought, so that's how I felt then. How did you feel? I felt strongly that this year's Fantasy on Ice was different from previous years. Everything was brighter than usual. The atmosphere created by Hanyu-san himself, the feeling of unity and cohesion of the entire cast, and the feeling of comfort. I felt that the atmosphere was very positive, but I didn't know why. Whether it was because Hanyu-san himself had changed, or we had missed the show after 3 years, or there was some other reason. And after watching that press conference, I realized. So this is what caused that change. I can't articulate it well, but after watching the press conference, I remembered those feelings. I felt grateful for everything Hanyu-san did for me and everything he achieved. And at the same time, I was looking forward to the start of his new career after turning professional. I helped him a Fantasy on Ice as a costume designer, and noticed that, as an amateur athlete, he was forced to strictly limit himself day after day. This is natural, because he fought at the world level and strived for the top, but now he will be a little freer. I don't know if this is the correct wording, but at that moment I breathed a sigh of relief. Of course, he will still push himself forward, continue to fight stoically, but I thought it would be great if he could live a little more freely. So I felt 2 emotions. Relief and anticipation. You've been responsible for the costume design for the opening and ending of Fantasy on Ice since 2017, right? Yes. I've been creating costumes for Faoi since 2017, but I've been hired to work on the concept since 2015. I looked at the performers, at the list of music and put forward a proposal. How do you like this costume and this concept? In 2015, I did not communicate directly with the skaters, but I was able to watch the show from the staff seats. I remember this clearly even now. Hanyu-san performed 2 programs in one show. The first is a collaboration, Believe, and the other is a demonstration number that he skated several seasons before, to the music of Vertigo, the number for the gala concerts of the 2010-11 season. It's a U2 rock song and he danced really cool. Then I was just starting to work and thought that figure skating was a sport that mainly used classical music, a world far from violent rock. So I was shocked to see Hanyu-san writing under Vertigo. I thought. It turns out that you can use rock in figure skating and perform so beautifully. Even now, if you ask which Hanyu-san program I would like to review, I would choose this one. She changed my ideas so much. You got those strong impressions at the 2015 show. In 2017, you became a costume designer, and in this capacity you were also present on this show. That's how you began to deal with Hanyu-san. Yes. When we first met, he was very kind to me, and now nothing has changed. We were both young and I remember we talked a lot. I was originally a professional guitarist and at the time was more into music than costume design, and I would talk about things like, I worked a lot with the members of such and such a band. Hanyu-san also actively supported the conversation. I love such and such music. Then I felt. He understands music better than I thought. When I first met Hanyu-san, I felt the same way I felt from Vertigo. Rock really suits him. He likes rock culture, he feels the beauty of this style, and knows what to do to make it look cool. Hanyu-san also asked me about playing the guitar, and I was glad that he really liked music. I realized that Vertigo was so great because he loves rock so much and understands it so well. Hanyu-san gives the impression of a real rock star, and this musical accompaniment also affects this. Yes. Hanyu-san was then well versed in the so-called visual kei, and said that he liked Jan Da-ark from the music of the early 2000s, and Miyavi, for example, from relatively recent music. From groups of a slightly different kind, Uverworld. I also like Uver and at the time I listened to them a lot. They have a legendary live show that the fans say. That's pretty cool, right? And I said. If we are talking about Uver, then this is the first thing that comes to mind and showed him a video on YouTube, and then the conversation began in the spirit of, yes, I saw that. Nostalgia. Cool. At that time, I began to clearly feel that Hanyu-san was getting to the bottom of things. He knows about a performance that is considered a legend among fans. I thought it was cool. There are few people with whom you can talk about music so easily, and this made a strong impression on me. He also said that he likes music from computer games, and I gave him a disc with my favorite music. This was in 2017 or 2018. That is, you initially came together based on conversations about music. You are also a musician, so your story is very interesting. Many people talk about this, but Hanyu-san truly stands out for his understanding and interpretation of music. I felt it right away as soon as I started working with him on Fantasy on Ice. What I like to do here is watch Hanyu-san train. Before the start of the show, the athletes, divided into several groups, freely rehearse, including doing runs to music. I often watched Hanyu-san's performances while standing on the side of the skating rink, and he would sometimes strike up a conversation with me. During artist rehearsals, he often said something like, "This guitarist is good." And at such moments I realized how subtly he feels music. I'd hear him say things like, "This is what I think about music." Hanyu-san said. When different musicians perform the same melody, the feeling during the skate changes, so it's good to skate to the same version of such and such a melody, performed by such and such a person. He said, even if it's the same tune and the same artist, it's very hard to skate to live sound. When I asked why, he said, during practice, the music is absorbed into the head and body, but when performing live, the tempo and manner change a little, and this affects how I get into the music. When I heard, the music that sounds in my head and the music that sounds in reality needs to be the same, without the slightest difference, I thought. Ah, that's how it is. I thought I understood how he managed to blend in with the music so much. I was surprised when he said that when he listens to pop music, he hears mostly bass and drums. He said that he was trying to hit them, and that really surprised me. Because that's the mindset of a musician. Especially guitarists, pianists, brass players, people playing melody over the rhythm section. They're always explained. The sense of rhythm and tempo, bass and drums are the basis of the melody, so listen to these sounds. Hanyu-san, without hesitation, said, "When I skate, I try to listen mostly to bass and drums," and as if nothing had happened, he returned to the skating rink, and I looked at him in shock, laughs. I thought, wow. Something like, does he understand her that much? Maybe he heard about it from some musician or studied music in the past, but it amazed me that he skates with this approach. Indeed, Hanyu-san's performances give rise to the feeling that he is creating music with his body. Yes. It seems that he is playing a musical instrument with the movements of his body. As soon as a note is heard, his muscles immediately respond to it. It has the same explosive power as a musical instrument. For example, a guitar has 6 strings, and when you strike the strings from the top 6 to the first, between their sounds there is a gap in time. Therefore, guitarists train to play at the same time, so that this gap, if possible, does not occur. Hanyu-san is the same. Either he starts moving a little earlier to get into the music, or it happens unconsciously, but his control over the muscles is like playing a musical instrument. After we talked about musical instruments many times, I came to the conclusion. Hanyu-san is something of a musician. He is a figure skater, an Olympian, a gold medalist and at the same time a musician. Several years have passed since that moment, but I feel that I was not mistaken then. I see that he is very passionate about headphones and goes deep into the topic of music. You just told us from the point of view of a musician. Can I ask you to tell us from the point of view of a designer? When you think about costume design for ice shows, what do you look for? Usually when I'm working on Faoi, I try to come up with a design that puts the emphasis on Hanyu-san. I imagine Hanyu-san in the center with the amazing members around him. Of course, he has to fit in with the other skaters, so I keep a balance, but the starting point of my design work is to find a way to convey Hanyu-san's dynamic in full. Moreover, I would like to show the audience a Hanyu-san that they have never seen before, even in competition costumes. As someone who makes costumes, I think Hanyu-san has the perfect appearance and proportions. He has a feminine thin waist, but his whole body, arms, chest are built of trained muscles. He has very good balance in his body. I really want to highlight the beauty of his proportions with my costumes. The atmosphere created by Hanyu-san is very special. It combines transparency and ephemerality. There's an incredible purity to it, and at the same time it has a kind of blazing heat that creates a feeling of slow simmering, and sometimes it has a piercing look. It's as if there are several people inside one person. I would like to fully convey this in my costumes. I want to convey contrast. I think it would be ideal, for example, if the costumes for the opening and final numbers, round A and round B, the first half of the round and the second editor's note, and all group numbers were different. In this year's Faoi tour, it all started with the 1970s Saturday night party style, and the finale, on the contrary, was pop music, and I tried to reflect in the costume's girlish cuteness. Round B had Mikawa-kan's dirty late-night jazz vibe at the start, and classic European private school style at the end. This is a large range of means of expression. Does Hanyu-san pay attention to costumes? He relies on me for the overall visuals, but takes functionality very seriously. In the opening, he always does quad jumps, so based on his movements and the design of the suit, he pays close attention to how comfortable the suit is for him. He carefully checks how heavy the suit is, its size, how easy it is to move in it, and takes jumping very seriously. What are his wishes regarding functionality? As soon as Hanyu-san puts on the suit, he immediately understands what the designer wants to show. He understands the designer's intent, and at the same time instantly assesses what needs to be done, so that he can jump in this suit, and whether he can perform his best performances on the show for several days in a row. For example, for the opening theme of the B tour, Ryakudatsu, Taisei Mikawa created a suit with a draped front that made it sit quite loosely. He might shake when he jumps, Hanyu-san noted. We immediately discussed everything, and in the end he said, "I want the back to be covered like this." The result is an amazingly balanced piece without losing its drape. There was also a black and red tie on the left chest. After Hanyu-san tried jumping at rehearsals in costumes, he expressed a wish. The tie is a little loose, it needs to be adjusted. When he said, "The tie is loose, it's hard to jump," we prepared a version that didn't move. But Hanyu-san realized how interesting a movable tie looked from a visual point of view, and instead of making it completely motionless, he suggested, "Maybe we should just attach it a little lower." And he also gave advice. "Can we make the fabric of the tie less heavy?" I listened, and we lowered the tie a little lower, while maintaining the fluttering look, and in the final version we made the fabric less heavy. The difference being several tens of grams. When we settled these 3 points, tightened the back, lowered the tie, lightened the fabric, the next day we looked forward to training, and at it Hanyu-san performed perfect quadruple jumps. After practicing several jumps, he returned with the words, "Now I'm not mistaken at all, thank you very much." I thought he was a real professional. And on tour, everyone wore jackets. And to prevent Hanyu-san's fabric from fluttering, we fastened the jacket with buttons to the clothes underneath, then it could be controlled, and it became easy to jump. We tried to use thin fabric, but it was still hot, so we decided to wear a sleeveless shirt under the jacket, and to increase air penetration, mesh fabric was used on the back. During the fitting, everyone said, "Oh, even without a jacket it will be cute." Hanyu-san also perked up. "Can't you take off your jacket and just wear this?" Laughs. We just laughed at the time and didn't actually accept this plan, but in Nagoya one day during the opening, they made a hole in the ice, and we had to organize a 10-minute break for repairs. During this break, Hanyu-san entered the rink in his opening costume, skated around the circle, and made contact with the audience. He put on a show. He lowered his jacket, showing his shoulders, and the audience was inspired. Then he joked in the dressing room. "That was great. Is it possible to take it off completely on the last day?" And indeed, on the last day, Hanyu-san took off his jacket and showed what was underneath, and then began to play with it, twirling it in his hands. He really does what he says he does on stage. Yes. And he does it without hesitation. When it came back, I said, "You finally took it off," and Hanyu-san laughed. "Everything was fine until I took it off. But I didn't practice putting it back on, so it took a while. I was fussing. Nightmare, nightmare. I can't put it on, what should I do?" I thought. Hanyu-san is so naughty, laughs. It's funny. Laughs. Yes. He was just in time for the next dance, without missing a thing. It was the last day of the 8 tour and the last time he wore that suit. Hanyu-san finally showed everyone what was hidden under the jacket. Initially it was not intended to be shown, but we took a very responsible approach to choosing the fabric in case something accidentally peeked out. And I felt grateful that he took advantage of the suit. Do such wonderful people really exist? Laughs. I thought again that he is a wonderful guy, not only in appearance. He's cool, really. From your story, I feel like you had a great atmosphere behind the scenes too. It's like that in fantasy in general, but especially in the locker room. There were only men there, so it was like some kind of club room. We chatted like students, the atmosphere was very cozy. Both active athletes and professional figure skaters participate in fantasy. The age difference is also large. Miura is 17 years old, Johnny Weir is 38. And still it resembled an interest group. This is a collection of people who have dedicated their lives to one cause, and despite the age difference they have unity and mutual respect. Men are fooling around. There really is some magic in this. They also talked a lot about figure skating. For example, Hanyu-san gave advice to other skaters. When you do this jump, it's better to do this part of the body like this. Almost everything was said in English, but it was very valuable information. Laughs, because the level of people who gathered there is incredible. Usually, ensemble skaters also perform in fantasy, in group numbers editor's note. And one year, when I was checking the costumes in the waiting room, only one person from the ensemble remained there, and at that moment Hanyu-san came. The ensemble skater took out a fitness ball and was going to train on the floor. The ball was very shabby. Hanyu-san noticed this and, pointing to the new ball, said, "You can take mine. I still have it." The skater didn't expect this and widened his eyes. "What? Is it possible?" Hanyu-san answered without hesitation. "It's possible, it's possible." What a wonderful moment. I was moved by this scene. But this conversation had a continuation. The skater from the ensemble handled the ball very carefully and went home with it, and probably trained with it all this time. The next year he came to fantasy with it again, but the ball again had a shabby look. Seeing this, Hanyu-san said, "It's shabby again. Here, take it." And again gave him his ball. He was surprised. "What? Are you giving it again?" I think it's so great that he carefully used Hanyu-san's ball for a whole year, and it's so wonderful that Hanyu-san gave him a new one again. The ensemble's skaters began training early, around 6 in the morning, which is very difficult physically, and Hanyu-san understood this very well. Therefore, he was sympathetic to the staff and to the skaters. After seeing that bull episode, I thought that he was loving towards all the comrades with whom he creates the show together. It made me think, I need to feel this way too. So, seeing such Hanyu-san, I also began to try to establish communication with everyone. There were probably many similar moments that no one saw. I think there were. Therefore, it is loved by the skaters who participate in the show from all over the world. And they are very respected. I'm responsible for preparing Stefan Lambiel's costumes, and I talk to him often. Performing in the show for a long time is very physically exhausting, so they do not always bring only joy. Stefan says, "This year has been hard again, but fun," and always ends by adding, "But Yuzuru's enthusiasm gives me courage." When I'm having a hard time, his passion and stoicism motivate me. In fact, Stefan's words are true. At the jumping competition after the overall final in Shizuoka, Stefan jumped and landed a quad. At his age, quadruple jumps are pretty hard, but I think he showed that kind of form, and that kind of performance, partly because of the thought of Yuzu can do it, so I should too. Hanyu-san has the ability to instill such thoughts in those around him. It affects back-end staff like us in a similar way. Thoughts arise. You can't compromise, they say, this will do. We need to strive higher. What thoughts appear when you find yourself among the best of the best? Yes, and Hanyu-san shows it through his actions. His amazing true colors and depth as a person. I felt it all the time. I'm on a month-long tour and have witnessed a lot, but Hanyu-san is truly stoic and feels his responsibility more than anyone. He performs, bearing this responsibility and taking the soul out of himself, and at the same time he does not forget to care and worry about staff like me. He is very insightful and understands a lot. His kindness and care helped me out more than once. I think that living at the same time as an athlete like Hanyu-san is happiness in itself. I am happy that I can observe his journey and be involved in it. At this year's Fantasy, everyone burst into tears after the performance in Shizuoka. This year the atmosphere was different, I already talked about it. Now, looking back, I think that the last day in Shizuoka was special. Hanyu-san performed with Notre Dame de Paris for the first time in several years, and it was great. The atmosphere was different. I stood at the side, looked and thought. What is this? When the show ended and everyone returned backstage, almost all the skaters were crying. Johnny and Stefan were crying especially hard, hugging everyone and high-fiving everyone. I myself burst into tears and could not control myself. Hanyu-san was the last one to return, and I realized that he was crying too. I've seen many ending scenes since 2017, but this was the first time Hanyu-san showed tears like this. Usually after the show ends everyone bustles and quickly leaves to catch the bus, but this year the atmosphere was completely different. Stefan and Johnny just cried, and Guillaume Cizerin and the other skaters calmed them down. Hanyu-san also fell onto his chair in the dressing room. He couldn't stand on his feet for a while. It was very cool. I don't want it to end, it's terrible that it ended. He muttered, crying. All the skaters told him, thank you. And looking at this, I myself burst into tears. Javier Fernandez sat next to Hanyu-san and said something to him, and it was a beautiful scene. I think Yuzu was saying something in English like, I don't want this to end. I don't want to break up with Javi, and the funny thing is that Javier calmed him down by saying, I understand, it's sad. I understand, but you still don't want me. Didn't sign anything, so sign my brochure, and sitting next to the brochure and pen, laughs. They have such a beautiful connection, such a warm relationship that I was moved to tears. Afterwards, Hanyu-san said, when I take off this suit, the show will end. I don't want to take it off. I want to be in it forever. And wore the suit until the very end. I was very glad. Thank you for the wonderful story. Finally, give Hanyu-san a message. This transition to the professionals is a new beginning for you, and I am very happy. It seems to me that a person who flew round the earth at incredible speed has now acquired wings and can soar into the sky. I want you to trust your feelings and move forward. What path will the incredibly talented Hanyu-san pave now? I look forward to this and support you from the sidelines. And one more thing. I'm one of your fans. A fan forever.